Welcome to Dr Joe Unplugged. This podcast contains general information and is not in any way medical advice. Is anybody actually surprised that professional sports people may use illicit substances? The AFL, Australian Football League, for those listening outside of Australia, was shocked, in inverted commas, last week by revelations that players were doing tests for illicit substances in the lead up to games and potentially being certified as unfit for other reasons on match day so that they don't show a positive test when WADA or ASADA or whoever's doing the testing on match day comes through and does random tests. As usual, there was outrage. Andrew Wilkie, a member of Parliament, really was hyperventilating. It's never a great thing to hyperventilate. You'll eventually feel faint. And called on the Prime Minister to do something. And to be fair, it's not the Prime Minister's role, and he actually said as much. And on this, I actually have to agree with him. He has a lot of things to do. Running the AFL is not one of them. And that's completely correct. The demographic in society that is most likely to dabble in illicit substances is males, probably between the ages of roughly 18 and 30. It's going to vary a little bit in different societies. I'm not saying females don't indulge, nor to say that people younger or older may not, but that is the peak age group, and this is not particularly new. There are a variety of substances which people may use, and that includes alcohol, but also illicit substances. And despite the war on drugs having run for the last 60 years, by any measure, it's a war that has failed abjectly if the aim was to stop drug use. It certainly has not done that. So that is the most likely demographic. Add into the mix that professional sports people, and certainly in the AFL, are in the main well paid, and that also applies to rugby league in America, hockey, football, basketball, and UK Premier League soccer, also other soccer leagues in Europe. I'm not casting aspersions on any particular sport or any individuals, but to say that high-level athletes typically are quite well paid. They're often high performance. They are also therefore exposed to different worlds. They will go out partying. Some of it is stress relief. Some of it is just the nature of the beast. Again, when are people in life most likely to go out partying and dabbling? It's between the ages of 18 and 30. So again, add in enablement through money. Add in the fact that these players will attract a lot of hangers-oners, I don't want to use the word groupies, and will be offered substances. Yeah, look, why don't you try this, mate, have a go, and some of them will. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but it shouldn't come as any great surprise. Sporting bodies are very keen to present themselves as community-minded, and we're all about doing the right thing. And again, I'm not going to say that they're not, but unfortunately, underneath the surface, a lot of it is about image and protecting image. And if players test positive, it's not good for the image of the sport, and even less so with sporting codes trying to encourage parents to enrol their children in those sports. So it probably should not come as a great surprise that potentially, and again, this all has to play out, so I'm not saying this is or isn't the case, that potentially steps may be taken to, I suppose, A, protect the player, in as much as if they've already used the substance, that can't be undone. They can be encouraged not to do it in the future, and that would probably be a good thing. But what's happened can't be undone. And obviously from glare and public spotlight, which adds to the stress and probably makes them more likely to use substances. But it also protects the code, and that's a monetary issue. And, the AFL and other sporting bodies, these are big businesses. If they were listed on the stock exchange, they'd probably be valued in the billions. But a lot of their value is the goodwill of the public, and that is at risk. So therefore, steps can be taken to reduce that risk. And it's therefore not surprising. I'm not taking a moral stance in this. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad, but what I am saying is that nobody should be surprised. We have this very strange attitude towards substances in Western societies. Certain substances that influence or alter people's minds are all quite good and okay, and some of them are even prescribed, and a lot of prescribed substances potentially more harmful than substances taken illicitly, and certainly cannabis is at the top of that list. And for those who haven't heard previously, yes, I am medical advisor to a medicinal cannabis company, but even if people are taking cannabis illicitly, which is obviously illegal and we don't want people to do that, but they do it anyway, you cannot fatally overdose on it. You can't say that for all substances. So the differences really have less to do with science or medicine and more to do with legality. Certain substances are illegal and others are legal, but it's not necessarily based on any rationale in terms of their effect or their degree of impairment that they can cause, or the amount of harm they can cause, or anything of that nature. So then we come back to this situation where people can and do use substances that they shouldn't back outside the sporting world. And I'm not talking about steroids or substances that might enhance performance, just using substances that people will use in inverted commas recreationally. Again, not a great term, but it's the one that's used. They're going to do it. If they play professional sport, then their livelihood is potentially on the line, and that's not the case perhaps for a whole lot of other people. So ultimately, should we be surprised? No, we shouldn't. Is this a great look for the sporting code? No, it isn't. Might it eventually be useful if it leads to, and don't hold your breath on this, folks, if it leads to a more rational assessment of how we deal with substances in society, because this is a high-profile issue, and if it leads to that and we get a more rational and perhaps sane approach going forwards, maybe something good will come out of it. Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like and share. You can also follow it on all the socials. There'll be new content uploaded each week.